A dimly lit apartment in Milwaukee, 1991. The air is thick with a stench no neighbor can ignore. Police sirens pierce the night as a man in handcuffs is led away, his face calm, almost vacant. Jeffrey Dahmer, the quiet loner next door, was no ordinary neighbor. He was the Milwaukee Cannibal, a serial killer who murdered, dismembered, and consumed 17 young men and boys over 13 years. His crimes ripped through the heart of a city, exposed a system that failed the vulnerable and left a scar on the world's conscience. How does a boy become a monster? What drove Dahmer to such unthinkable depravity? And how did he hide in plain sight for so long? This is the bone-chilling saga of Jeffrey Dahmer, a tale of darkness, betrayal, and a horror that still haunts us. Jeffrey Lionel Dahmer came into the world on May 21, 1960, in a quiet Milwaukee suburb, a place of tidy lawns and American dreams. His parents, Lionel, a chemist with a razor-sharp mind, and Joyce, a homemaker battling inner demons, seemed to promise a stable life. But beneath the surface, their home was a pressure cooker. Violent arguments echoed through the house, leaving young Jeffrey, a shy and sensitive boy, caught in the crossfire. Joyce's mental health struggles and Lionel's long hours at the lab left him alone, a child adrift in his own world. Teachers called him timid, polite, but distant, a kid who seemed to carry an invisible weight. By age 10, that weight took a sinister shape. Jeffrey began collecting roadkill, squirrels, raccoons, anything lifeless on the Wisconsin roads. He'd bring them home, dissect them with a morbid curiosity, and preserve their bones in jars, fascinated by what lay beneath the skin. His father, mistaking it for scientific zeal, encouraged him, even showing him how to bleach bones. But this wasn't science. It was the first flicker of a compulsion that would consume him. These were no childhood experiments. They were the seeds of a necrophilic obsession, a need to control and possess that would later turn to human lives. Adolescence only deepened Dahmer's darkness. Puberty brought a secret he buried under shame: his homosexuality, a truth he hid from his homophobic family in a 1970s Midwest steeped in prejudice. Alienated and rejected, he turned to alcohol, downing whiskey by 14 to drown his turmoil. His parents' marriage collapsed in a bitter divorce, leaving him shuttling between homes, a teenager unmoored. In the quiet of his room, his fantasies grew grotesque. Sexual desires twisted with control, imagining men who wouldn't leave, who'd stay forever, even in death. He later told psychologists he dreamed of perfect submission, a partner reduced to an object, a vision that would soon become his reality. In June 1978, just weeks after high school graduation, Dahmer crossed a line from fantasy to horror. His mother had moved away, leaving him alone in the family home in Bath Township, Ohio. Seizing the moment, he lured 18-year-old Stephen Hicks to the house with a promise of drinks and company. Hicks, a drifter looking for a good time, had no idea he was walking into a trap. They drank, laughed, but when Hicks tried to leave, Dahmer's desperation erupted. He crushed Hicks's skull with a dumbbell, the crack of bone echoing in the empty house. What followed was methodical, chilling. Dahmer dismembered the body, dissolved it in acid, and crushed the bones, scattering the remains like dust. His first kill wasn't a mistake. It was a blueprint. For the next few years, Dahmer's life teetered between chaos and restraint. He tried to outrun his urges, enrolling in the army in 1979, but alcoholism got him discharged 2 years later. Back in Ohio, he lived with his father, who hoped discipline would save him. But the darkness was patient. In 1987, Dahmer moved to Milwaukee, a city of fading factories and racial divides, settling into a low-rent apartment that would become his killing ground. That same year, he struck again, luring Stephen Twomey, a 24-year-old aspiring actor, to a hotel. After a night of drinking, Dahmer woke to find Twomey dead, his body bruised from a frenzy he claimed he couldn't recall. Instead of panic, he felt a twisted calm. He bought a suitcase, stuffed Tuomi's body inside, and took it home, where he dismembered and disposed of it with a precision that terrified even him. Milwaukee became Dahmer's hunting ground and the Oxford apartments his lair. From 1987 to 1991, his killings exploded into a spree that claimed 17 lives, mostly young men and boys, Black, Latino, Asian, often gay or transient, men society overlooked. He prowled gay bars, offering cash or drinks to lure them to his apartment, where spiked cocktails turned them into prey. Once unconscious, he'd kill, dismember, and preserve. Skulls in jars, organs in the fridge, bodies dissolved in acid vats. His apartment reeked of death, a stench neighbors complained about, but police ignored. Dahmer didn't just kill, he consumed, engaging in cannibalism to keep them with him, and experimented with acid injections, trying to create living zombies who'd never leave. Each act was a descent deeper into a void no one could fathom. His victims were heartbreakingly vulnerable. Tony Hughes, a 31-year-old deaf black man, dreamed of modeling, his warm smile lighting up rooms. Errol Lindsay, 19, was a jokester whose sister never recovered from his loss. Conarak Synthasamphone, just 14, was a Laotian immigrant with a shy charm, unaware he'd crossed paths with a predator. Dahmer targeted those least likely to be missed, exploiting a city where racial and homophobic biases left entire communities invisible. Milwaukee's police, underfunded and indifferent, brushed off warnings. Glenda Cleveland, a neighbor in the next building, smelled the decay, heard screams, but her calls were dismissed as nuisance complaints. One night, Conarak escaped, naked and drugged, only to be returned to Dahmer by officers who bought his lie of a lover's quarrel. Hours later, Conarak was dead, another name on a growing list. How did Dahmer evade justice for so long? The answer lies in a perfect storm of failure. Milwaukee's 1980s backdrop, economic decline, racial segregation, the AIDS crisis, created blind spots. Gay men, especially minorities, were stigmatized, their disappearances barely investigated. Dahmer, with his unassuming demeanor and white privilege, was invisible to a system that didn't care about his victims. A 1988 conviction for molesting a minor earned him just a slap on the wrist. A year of work release, another missed chance to stop him. Neighbors' complaints piled up, but police saw a quiet blonde man, not a monster. The stench, the screams, the bones, all ignored as Dahmer's body count climbed. By July 1991, the walls were closing in. But not because of police. Dahmer's own recklessness was unraveling his world. His apartment, a house of horrors, was overflowing, body parts in every corner, a 57-gallon drum of acid in the bedroom, Polaroids of his victims stashed like trophies. The city was waking up, whispers of missing men growing louder. One man, Tracy Edwards, would change everything, but that moment was yet to come. Who was Jeffrey Dahmer, really? A psychopath without remorse, or a broken soul consumed by his own darkness? And how would Milwaukee face the truth when it finally broke? The Milwaukee night hums with unease, a city unaware that a monster lurks in its heart. Jeffrey Dahmer, the Milwaukee Cannibal, has claimed 17 lives by 1991, his apartment a grotesque shrine of body parts and secrets. For 13 years, he's slipped through the cracks, shielded by a system that ignored the screams of the marginalized. But one man's escape is about to shatter his world, exposing a horror that will shake Milwaukee to its core. How was Dahmer finally caught? What price did his victims' families pay? And what happens when a killer's story becomes a global spectacle? The saga of Jeffrey Dahmer doesn't end with his arrest. It is a wound that bleeds into our present, challenging what it means to seek justice, truth, and healing. On July 22, 1991, the House of Cards collapsed. Tracy Edwards, a 32-year-old with a quick wit and a survivor's instinct, found himself in Dahmer's Oxford apartments, lured by an offer of cash for company. But when Dahmer slipped handcuffs on his wrist and brandished a knife, Edwards knew he was staring into the abyss. Heart pounding, he played along, talking calmly to keep Dahmer at ease, waiting for his moment. When Dahmer's guard dropped, Edwards bolted, running into the Milwaukee night. One cuff still dangling from his wrist. He flagged down 2 patrol officers, his voice urgent, pleading for help. Skeptical but curious, they followed him back to apartment 213 and walked into a nightmare. The officers gagged at the stench, their flashlights catching glints of horror. Polaroids of dismembered bodies pinned to the walls, a human head in the refrigerator, a 57-gallon drum reeking of acid and flesh. Dahmer, cornered, didn't resist. As he was cuffed, his calm unnerved them. His confession poured out over days, 160 pages detailing 17 murders, necrophilia, cannibalism, and his twisted attempts to create zombie companions by drilling into skulls. Milwaukee reeled as news broke, TV screens flashing grainy footage of a handcuffed Dahmer, his blank stare chilling a nation. Relief mingled with rage. How had this monster killed for so long, right under the city's nose? The investigation revealed a cascade of failures. Glenda Cleveland, a neighbor in the adjacent building, had called police repeatedly, reporting screams and the stench of decay. Her pleas were dismissed, filed away as overreactions. Months earlier, 14-year-old Konorak synthesomphone had stumbled from Dahmer's apartment, drugged and bleeding, only to be returned by officers who bought Dahmer's lie of a drunken lover. That night, Konorak became another victim, his life extinguished because police saw a gay, minority teen and looked away. Milwaukee's Black and Latino communities erupted, their trust in law enforcement shattered. The 1980s context, racial divides, homophobia, an overworked police force had let Dahmer thrive, his white, unassuming face a shield in a system blind to his prey. Dahmer's trial, beginning January 30th, 1992, was a circus of grief and fury. He initially pleaded innocent by reason of mental disease, then shifted to guilty but insane, hoping for a hospital over a cell. Prosecutors laid bare his horrors. Forensic reports of dissolved bones, Polaroids cataloging his trophies, his own words admitting he ate victims to keep them with him. The courtroom pulsed with pain as families spoke. Rita Isbell, sister of victim Errol Lindsay, unleashed a raw, searing outburst, her voice cracking as she screamed at Dahmer, nearly lunging at him before collapsing in tears. Her words, later echoed in the Netflix series, burned into history. "I will never stop hating you." On February 15, 1992, the jury ruled Dahmer sane, convicting him of 16 murders. He was sentenced to 16 life terms, 957 years in prison, a symbolic eternity in a state without the death penalty. Dahmer's life ended violently on November 28, 1994, beaten to death by inmate Christopher Scarver in a Wisconsin prison. At 34, the Milwaukee Cannibal was gone, but his shadow lingered. Milwaukee tried to erase him. The Oxford apartments were demolished in 1992. The site left vacant, a scar on the city's soul. For victims' families, like Tony Hughes's mother Shirley or Konorak's brother Anouk, the pain was unending. They weren't just mourning sons and brothers, they were grieving a system that failed to hear their cries. Reforms followed. Better missing persons protocols, diversity training for police, but many felt it was too little, too late. Dahmer's name became a synonym for evil, a boogeyman who proved monsters could live next door. Then in 2022, the nightmare resurfaced. Netflix's Dahmer, Monster, the Jeffrey Dahmer story, a 10-episode juggernaut by Ryan Murphy and Ian Brennan, stormed the world, racking up 196 million hours viewed in its first week and over 1 billion in 60 days. Evan Peters' haunting portrayal of Dahmer, alongside Niecy Nash's powerful Glenda Cleveland, brought the story to a new generation. The series was meticulous in parts, nailing key moments. Tracy Edwards' heart-stopping escape, Conorac's tragic return, Rita Isbell's courtroom rage, all drawn from court records and news archives. But it took liberties, casting Cleveland as Dahmer's next-door neighbor, not a nearby resident, and imagining a romantic bond with Tony Hughes when evidence suggests a single encounter. These choices, while dramatic, spark debate. Where's the line between storytelling and truth? The series' impact was seismic, but divisive. It gave voice to victims with episodes like Silenced, spotlighting Tony Hughes' dreams and humanity, earning praise for exposing systemic racism and homophobia. Niecy Nash's Emmy for Cleveland honored a woman whose warnings went unheard. Yet for families like Rita Isbell's, it was a betrayal. Isbell, in a 2022 Insider interview, called the series re-traumatizing, furious that Netflix didn't consult her before recreating her courtroom pain. Her cousin, Eric Perry, echoed this on X, decrying the commodification of their grief. The casting of Peters, a heartthrob, fueled a darker controversy. TikTok fan edits romanticizing Dahmer horrified victims' kin, while the series' brief LGBTQ tag, later removed, added insult to injury. Ex-posts from 2022, like Asandua Shahulud's, lauded the series for exposing justice failures, but others slammed its graphic scenes as exploitative. The ethical questions cut deep. True crime, as Business Ethics Quarterly noted in 2023, risks turning trauma into entertainment, prioritizing profit over empathy. Netflix earned millions, but families like Isbell's got nothing. No call, no consent, just pain reopened for the world to binge. Graphic murder scenes, while accurate, teetered on sensationalism, potentially numbing viewers to real loss. The series aimed to center victims, but did it? Filmmakers, CNN argues, must consult families, avoid glamorizing killers, and temper violence to respect the living. Dahmer's glasses, fetching $150,000 in 2022, shows a morbid obsession that series like this can feed, raising a question: who profits when tragedy becomes spectacle? Beyond the headlines, Dahmer's story forces us to confront uncomfortable truths. Psychologists point to borderline personality disorder, necrophilic paraphilias, and alcoholism as pieces of his puzzle, but no label fully explains him. His need for control, rooted in abandonment and repression, met a 1980s Milwaukee where racial divides and homophobia let him hunt unseen. The AIDS crisis made gay bar patrons wary of police, and systemic bias ignored Black and Latino voices, like Glenda Cleveland's. These weren't causes, but enablers, a perfect storm that let 17 lives slip away. Dahmer's legacy is a call to action. His early red flags, animal cruelty, isolation, drinking, were missed by those closest to him. Schools and families must prioritize mental health, catching warning signs before they fester. Police need bias training and robust systems to track missing persons, especially from marginalized groups. Society must amplify the unheard, ensuring no Glenda Cleveland is dismissed again. The Netflix series, Flaws and All, sparks these conversations, urging us to face the failures that let a monster thrive. Milwaukee, scarred but resilient, rebuilt, but the victims' names, Tony, Errol, Conorac, demand we do better. The Milwaukee Cannibal is gone, but his story isn't. It's a mirror reflecting our capacity for evil and our power to change. Every victim was a light snuffed out. Every family a testament to endurance. As we grapple with Dahmer's horrors, we're left with a choice: to sensationalize or to learn, to exploit or to honor. The truth of Jeffrey Dahmer isn't just in his crimes. It's in the lives he stole, the system he exposed, and the questions we must answer to keep the next monster from rising.